Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fantasy for the Ages, a show where father and son sit down and talk about fantasy fiction, sci fi, and whatever else we feel like talking about on a given day. I'm Jim, I'm the father, and I am without my son today. This is one of our Just Jim episodes because we are working through the Dresden Files, and I have another review of a Dresden File book today. And Zach hasn't read any of that yet, so he cannot participate. He can't even watch these yet. He's just trusting me to not suck. So here I am, ready to bring to you another great episode, and I gotta live up to my son's expectations. In general, what we do here on Fantasy for the Ages is work through the Wheel of Time. So if you haven't checked out any of those episodes yet, I encourage you to do so. We're on the fourth book, The Shadow Rising, and going through that. And then you'll find a whole bunch of other content throughout our channel, like these, the Dresden File episodes, um, many other different types of quirky things we've enjoyed talking about, a few different series of episodes. Hope you like what you find, and if you do, subscribe. Speaking of liking what you find, if you like this video, be sure to click the like button. If you're listening to this in the audio version later, go ahead and give us a star rating, review us, help people find out what we're doing here. We just want to have people share the fun with us. And if you'd like to interact more, you can find in the show notes here ways to connect with us, like join us on Discord. We've got lots of people there hanging out with us, talking about the things they enjoy, fiction and other odds and ends. And Twitter, you can find us there. We're pretty active. Pretty much any social media that's, not too complicated for someone like me to figure out. So Facebook, Instagram. Don't look for me on, Twitch, Snapchat. That's beyond me. Keep it simple. Keep it safe. All right. Well, before I move into our discussion of White Knight, Book 9 of the Dresden Files, just a couple simple notes for you. One, we always discuss what we're drinking when we do an episode. Usually it's an alcoholic beverage, and in fact, I've created many unique ones for different content we've done. However, Pacific Coast time, it's only 10 in the morning today, so I'll be honest, I'm drinking coffee today. It's not even spiked. It's just coffee. Now it is an appropriate mug, but it's just good coffee. Sometimes that's what hits the spot. Other special note is in the theme of Dresden Files, we've just recently heard a new novella is being dropped within just a few weeks now. Let's see, when this episode goes live, it's just going to be a few days. Actually, it might even be out when this one drops. I'm not sure. I'll have to check. But if you're with us live right now, then you know it's not quite here yet. It is on July 5th, 2022, The Law, technically 17.5 in the Dresden Files, is going to hit. It's only in audio. It's just, there's no printed copy, and there's not supposed to be a printed copy ever. If you have an Audible account, you'll be able to go ahead and buy it and listen to it. It's not just written by Jim Butcher, though. This one's narrated by Jim Butcher. So you can hear how he brings his own content to life. It is taking place after Battleground, and it's extending the story a little bit. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. July 5th, I've pre-ordered. I'll be hitting it right away when it comes out. Now let's talk about White Knight. As with all of my Dresden File reviews, I'm not going to spoil anything beyond this book. I've read them all. I'm going to keep them secret, though. So if you're reading and listening as you go through the series, no fear, not going to mess it up for you. However, I'm going to full spoil this book, and I'll talk about anything from the previous book. So if you haven't read White Knight, don't be listening. Stay away from this episode. You have been warned, because I'm not going to leave many secrets unturned. My initial thoughts about White Knight, it doesn't really shift the Dresden Files world very much. We're halfway through the series of what's been published at this point. We're not quite halfway When you consider how much content Jim Butcher intends to put out, he figures to go about 23 or so books. But there's only 17 books out right now, so this is halfway. We had a major shift to the story arc in our last book, Proven Guilty. This one just kind of builds on the world we already know. It's going to extend the story a little further. It's going to enrich it some more. We're not going to get a lot of new characters or wow, we didn't know that about the supernatural in the Dresden Files. But things we already know about, like wizards and vampires, we're going to get more details. It's going to be enriching to our understanding of the world Jim Butcher has created. Let's talk about what happens. Another year has gone by since our previous book, Proven Guilty. Things in this book start off, well, like many of them, Harry gets called in for a case. Who's calling him in? Well, this time it's Chicago Police Department's Special Investigations Unit, because one of those freaky, weird murders has occurred where they need his consultant efforts. We discover Lieutenant Karen Murphy is no longer Lieutenant Karen Murphy. She's been busted down to sergeant because of the last book. So a year ago, she ditched her responsibilities to go help Harry when they invaded Arctis Tour to try to rescue Molly. She's just, I'm here for you, Harry. So off she went. She was therefore missing in action, unaccounted for, and the police didn't particularly care for her just going off like that. Of course, they don't know where she really went, and she couldn't explain it either. That didn't help her case. So she didn't get fired, but she did get lowered in rank. The case that he's been brought in for to help Sergeant Murphy, it looks like a suicide, but it was staged. And they were already figured out it's been staged. I mean, there's some stuff here that doesn't seem right. Now, officially, it's a suicide. But Harry's been called in because, this doesn't look like a suicide. There's something different, something weird going on here. So what is it? What's going on? Well, Harry, he checks out the scene, he investigates, and he determines that the woman, Janine, was a practitioner of magic. And it appears that's why she was killed. There's even a hidden message that basically aligns to kill the witch. Okay, so somebody is out after magic users. There's a humorous moment then as Molly Carpenter is reintroduced to us. Now, she's been training with Harry ever since the events in the last book. She's Harry's apprentice. So a year has gone by. She's been taking lessons under him, and she's learned certain abilities that she can use and she's pretty good at. And she's using one of them right now, a veil. So magically speaking, a veil allows someone to not be noticed by others around them, more or less be invisible. And she is discovered in the crime scene by both Harry and Murphy. And they're not real happy about it. Now, they caught her because they heard her and they smelled her, apparently. She's like, you can't hide all those things so well. Murphy puts a little fear of God into her because she doesn't react right away with contrition. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been here. She literally cuffs her, starts reading her rights. It all backs down, calms down then. She doesn't get hauled off to the clink. But Murphy makes the point. Stay out of crime scenes when you're not invited. And we're learning about Molly here. She wants to help. She wants to be involved. And she thinks she's quite capable of helping. But maybe she's not as ready as she thinks she is. Next up, Harry, now with Molly along, because she's not back training like she should have, they go and visit Butters, who's still down working in the coroner's office. This is actually Harry's first visit back since the mess with necromancers and zombies in Deadbeat, 2 years and books ago. And this is Molly's introduction to Butters. They've not met before. And she's told by Harry, yeah, he's clued. And that means he gets the supernatural stuff. He's not one of these that has his head in the sand and doesn't believe anything. He knows about Harry, that magic's real. zombies. I mean, he's been all involved in stuff, so they can talk frankly in front of him. We get an update on Harry's melted hand. And now you remember, Butters had discovered his hand was healing. Left hand, actually. It's not going to just fall off or be useless. Wizards have the ability to heal amazingly, but severe injury takes time. And Butters, talks to him about what he's been doing and rehab, and it's kind of getting better bit by bit. Takes a while, but he is going to eventually get that hand back as well as ever. The visit to Butters also reveals more deaths. I mean, that's why you go to Butters. He deals with dead bodies. And Harry's investigating. Have there been any other people dying weirdly, like this one he just investigated? And, well, yeah, Butters says there have been a number of deaths, all women, all supposedly suicides, but things sort of seem hinky. He can tell they just don't line up quite right. So what should we do? Well, a number of the bodies he's just got notes on, but the last corpse that's come through is still here, right here with Butters. So getting that corpse out, Harry has Molly do a spell because she has, he figures it would be better if she does it than he does it. He's going to have her do a spell where she can experience the victim's last moments and see what they can learn from that. Well, the spell works, and we get two things out of it. First of all, to the shock of Butters and Harry, Molly has a freaking orgasm under the influence of the spell. I mean, they're like, what is going on? And she just and ends up liquid pool on the floor, just she's melts basically in ecstasy, which that's what she learns. The woman died in absolute bliss. She felt so good, she didn't even know she was dying. But Butters confirms, okay, well, something did that to her, and it wasn't drugs. She didn't take anything. She didn't overdose. She barely had anything like that in her system. So something did that to her. It wasn't chemical. The other thing is that, okay, this does match a pattern from the first victim Harry investigated. Someone did this to her and made it look like a suicide. So we have a serial killer, and Harry's on the case. As they're leaving, Molly shares, what about a white court vampire? I mean, they use sexual pleasure as a means of feeding. She clearly was having sexual pleasure. Harry points out that, some of the suicides that I've learned about had nothing to do with pleasure. They actually looked absolutely miserable. So it's probably not just go to that, the white court sex thing. There are a lot of things that bump in the night that could be to blame for this. Harry drops Molly back off at her home, the Carpenter house, and he's going to go on and do some more investigating like he does, but he's really disturbed at this case, a whole bunch of women being killed like this. He has a thing for women. He's protective. He doesn't want them harmed, and just the thought of what someone out there is doing to women after woman after woman after woman really has him disturbed. So he needs a drink. He goes to McAnally's, the pub that's for magic users, and goes on in, gets a drink. And then he notices the place has pretty much cleared out since he came in. Mac, the proprietor, comes over to him, has a seat. Harry's like, what's the deal? Why'd everybody go? And Mac pretty much makes it clear, because you. First, Harry's a warden, remember. The warden is, a warden is the police of the Wizards Council, the White Council of Wizards, and people don't like hanging out around the wardens. They have power, they could do things to them. You think about it, you're around a bunch of police, sometimes you might not be perfectly comfortable either. It doesn't mean you're guilty of something. So that's one thing, okay? He's got the warden's cloak with him. He's a warden. But the other is that there's a rumor going around about women who are going missing, and some of whom have turned out to be these dead women, and having been seen with someone with a gray cloak shortly before they disappeared. People are putting it together that it may be a warden who's taking the women, who's killing women, and who's the warden they know in Chicago? Harry. So some people think it might be Harry doing the crimes, getting rid of female magic users, maybe. They're not comfortable. Mac is not real comfortable either. He actually says to Harry, "So, are you doing it?" Harry's like, "Hey, he's hurt. No, I'm not doing it. And I could use some help, maybe. Can you point me somewhere? I mean, you talk to a lot of people. Now, Mac doesn't want to have anything to do with this. He's neutral territory. His tavern is actually declared that way. Anybody can meet here from any of the magic entities and know that this is neutral ground. You're safe here. So he doesn't want to get involved. But he also doesn't like that women are getting killed either. So he slips a hint to Harry, uh, tells him about a meeting that he ought to go check out, a meeting of the Ordo Lebes, and a house gets an address, woman named Anna Ash. So that's Harry's next plan. He's going to go scope this place out, see what's happening with his meeting and what he can learn that might help. He gets Murphy for this. Says, let's go check this thing out. Apparently, this group of women are meeting and it might have something to do with the case. So as they're watching where this meeting is going to take place, he sees a number of individual women showing up and going in. The last one they see is an interesting one. Helen Beckett. Now, this is a memory lesson for you here. Helen Beckett, we go all the way back to Full Moon, the second book in the series, where she was involved in some black magic stuff going on. And you can go back and look at that again, but she and her husband were definitely involved with some stuff, and it's sex magic and dark stuff, and her husband ended up going to prison, and Harry's like, she might not be the coolest, safest type of person. She might be someone I should suspect could be involved in this. I'm going to have to explore. So they follow after she's gone in. He and Murphy follow up into this apartment building to where the Ordo is meeting. It does not go well. They don't want to let Harry even into the apartment. They don't trust him. It's a group of women who are meeting here out of the sense of that we're at risk, so let's band together. Safety in numbers. And we can take care of each other. And here's exactly why. We've got the guy in the gray cloak showing up. He's probably after one of us. And he's like, I am not after any of you. Murphy vouches for him. He's not the one doing it. It's a tense situation. And he leaves before too long, but he does get a little bit of information out of them. And one of them is a key piece. Jessica Blanche, the body that Molly had checked, in that victim that she did the spell on, that one was not a practitioner of magic, even though she was clearly killed for the same reason. Whoever killed her thought she was a witch, a magic user. She wasn't. They're like, no, she wasn't part of our group. Nobody knows anything about her being a magic user. Okay, so that's a break in the pattern. Harry's going to have to investigate what happened then. What does that mean? Leaving, he and Murphy get into more conversation about who this gray cloak could be. And, if it's not you, Harry, but they all think it's you, maybe it's someone who looks like you, who could be posing as you. What about that guy, Thomas? See, Murphy knows about Thomas. And could it be him? He's got certain tastes, certain needs. Could he be the one who's doing this? It might fit. And if people saw him wearing a gray cloak, they might mistake him for you because you kind of have a similar build. You're both tall. Harry is not happy about this. He's like, no, it wasn't Thomas. That's my brother. That is not something he would do. So he gets pretty worked up about this. And as they're outside the building having this argument, his emotions is rising. He's getting pretty heated up. Magic and emotion tie together. It points this out at the point in the series. Magic users draw on strong feelings to channel into using magic. So Harry actually feels magical force building up in him, and he's got to get rid of this because he doesn't want to do anything to Murphy. I mean, no, he's just heated up. So he actually reaches down, touches the ground, and drains the magic out of him into the ground. It causes some light bulbs nearby to explode. Okay, these things happen. But it also causes Murphy's car to explode. They'd driven over in Murphy's car, and kaboom! Now, Harry didn't blow up Murphy's car. Turns out there was a car bomb, and Harry's magic triggered it early. Somebody just tried to kill him. Tried to kill Murphy, tried to kill Harry, maybe tried to kill them both. And thankfully, he inadvertently set the bomb off ahead of time. Another mystery. Why is someone out there now trying to kill him? Or her? Or them? Harry realizes, though, that despite his confidence that Thomas is not the Grey Cloak, not the one killing women, he does really need to check him out. He's got to do his due diligence, at least to find out why does it look like maybe you're the one doing it. He might believe Thomas is not guilty, but it would be better to prove Thomas is not the one. So he's going to go visit Thomas. See, Thomas has moved out. He's no longer living with Harry. He's got his own apartment. And he gave Harry a key, not just to take advantage of his apartment anytime he wants, but in case there's an emergency or a real reason that Harry needs him, he's got a key to the place. But he's never been there. So he takes Mouse, his big old dog, with him, and they go to visit Thomas. When Harry gets there, this place is posh. It's ritzy. It's high class. He had no idea Thomas was living in something like this. It's a secure community. It's got a doorman. They're clearly not comfortable with him just showing up when he doesn't live there, but he's got a key. So up he goes, up to Thomas's apartment. And he goes in. It's like, this place does not look like Thomas. It's spotless. And Harry knows Thomas is kind of a slob. So this beautiful, pristine front area and kitchen, it looks like there's not a speck of dirt anywhere. He's like, what's going on here? He looks through more of the apartment. He finds Thomas's bedroom. Oh, okay, now it makes more sense because this place is a mess. And the bathroom, yeah, that looks like Thomas. So there are clearly parts that are lived in the Thomas way. And then there's the front area that is the showroom. Thomas probably uses that area to give one impression to people who he might bring over. And then the other areas that, you don't have to see, maybe. The phone goes off before Harry can do anything else. Thomas is not here, trying to figure out what to do at this point. And the phone is picked up by an answering machine, the voicemail. And Harry, hears this woman talking about her need for Tomas. Not Thomas, Tomas. Okay, it's a great line. I gotta read this. Tomas, it is Alessandra. I am desperate for you. Please, I need to see you tonight. I know that there are others, that there are so many others, but I can't stand it anymore. And I must have you. Her tone lowers. There is no one else who can do for me what you do. Do not disappoint me, I beg you. Harry reads into that exactly what you're supposed to read into that, and it's taken totally out of context. It's very funny. You don't understand. I mean, you think you understand when you hear that, but we'll get back to this later at the end of the book. Very, very funny. We'll find out what's going on with Tomas. So Harry seeks to leave Thomas a note. He looks for something to write with. He doesn't see anything. He goes to the other bedroom. There's a second bedroom, and whoa, what does he just walk into? This room is an arsenal of weapons and bullets and such. And there's photos all over the walls. These are photos of the dead women. And they're clearly taken before the police showed up. There's no crime tape. There's no things left out by the police photographer. Just Polaroids of the dead women. And Thomas has these up in his room. What the heck? It almost kind of makes Thomas look a little guilty. Before Harry can process this any further, though, there's a boom, boom, boom on the door. It's the police wanting him to open up. Harry's like, oh, look at all this stuff here. I can't let the police find this stuff here. This would be horrible. So, thinking fast, Harry goes into full-on gay mode. He poses as the boyfriend of Thomas. And he goes to the door and he answers it with a very irritated, jealous, and frustrated boyfriend attitude. Oh, fine. He's not even here when I come, and then he's going to sick the bully boy on me, and it's just like that, Thomas. It's hilarious. Harry can't believe he's doing this. He's like, what am I doing? But it's how he quick gets out of this situation. He just plays the role. And it's the police and the superintendent of the building. And the super had called for the police because there's somebody up here who doesn't belong. They buy his story. They see the key. It is legit. They check his ID. Harry's like, oh man, they're going to know my name's Harry Dresden, and I just posed as the gay lover of Thomas. I'm never going to live this down. But nevertheless, he's able to get away because the superintendent, he's rather a bigot. He's more than happy to believe Thomas is gay, and he doesn't want this flamboyant boyfriend thing to make a scene. So Harry works it. Getting out of there, Harry goes home, and to process the things that he saw at Thomas's place better, he calls up the Shadow of Lachelle that's still living in his brain. Now, here we get an update. They've been like this for a couple of years now. There's time that has passed. Well, more than a couple of years. And she's been living in his brain. And they've developed their working relationship more and more. Including here, Harry actually gives her a nickname. Instead of Lachelle, she's not Lachelle. Lachelle's with the coin buried in my basement. You're something else. I'm going to call you Lash. And she's kind of like taken aback. I got a name. He has a whole conversation with Lash, trying to work through the evidence. Now, Harry's still irrationally sure the serial killer isn't Thomas, though so much of this evidence seems to be pointing at him. Lash reminds him, Thomas's sister, Lara Wraith, she could be behind it. She could be forcing Thomas to do it for some reason by using Justine. Now, you got to think back a few books. Justine was the woman that Thomas was feeding on, but also grew to end up loving, and she loves him back. And he almost killed her when he was wounded terribly in a previous book, and they brought her to him, and he drained her to recover his energy. He stopped just before she died. Well, she's been cared for ever since that time by his sister at the Wraith complex outside of the city. And so Lara is the reason Justine is safe. Justine is still alive. She could be using Justine as leverage. Thomas could be involved. Harry doesn't like that. He still doesn't think that's going to be what it is, but switch the conversation. Let's talk. He's talking with Lash about that meeting of the Ordo at Anna Ash's house. And he's processing the people that was there, everything he saw. Was there any other clues that I should have picked up? And he's able to do this well because Lash, has perfect recall. So she's actually able to bring up, as he perceives it, the whole image of the room he was in before, like he's really there. It's like virtual reality. He can see it all again. However, in what she pulls up, there's one more person in the apartment than Harry remembers. But this person, who's clearly sitting on the love seat, is all vague, cloudy. Can't make out any actual features, can't see the person. You can just see there's a shape there. And he realizes, oh crap, there was someone else in the room who was intentionally hiding themselves from me which means they were using magic. They were veiling themselves from my attention. That could be the killer. I need to get back there. They're in trouble. Now, that leads to a comical scene at Anna's apartment because he rushes right back, and a person. Let's see. Sorry. Moved my notes too fast. He gets back there and he discovers the extra person. It's a private investigator they hired to protect them. Another private investigator who's also a wizard. Someone who's doing what Harry's doing. What? Oh, it's better. It's his old girlfriend. It's Elaine. The one he grew up with in Justin Dumornay's home. That's a whole thing we've learned before. Elaine and he have already had an interaction earlier in the books. Well, she ended up out in Los Angeles. She started up a PI practice as a wizard, just like Harry's doing. She's like, you got a good thing. Why not copy it? He learns from Elaine. Okay, they hired me to protect them and try to figure out what's going on. And I've been on a case of looking for the women who have been going missing. It's not just here. It happened in Los Angeles. It's happened in a few places around the country. Now it's happening here. It's been going on for a year. Harry's like, why haven't I heard about this? She says, well, there's been rumors that it may be somebody in the wardens who are doing it. You're a warden. Of course they wouldn't bring it up to you. They think you might be out to get them. He's frustrated about this. Before they get too much further into the conversation, though, Mouse goes on alert. Now, he's got his dog with him still, Mouse. He lets out a growl, and the next thing we know, the power goes out. They smell smoke. The building is on fire. Harry discerns from Mouse that someone is waiting for them in the hall, because he's still growling right at the hall, and he senses something. So, for some reason, this is a trap. Somebody has set the fire to get them to come rushing out, and something's going to happen. So how do we get around that? Well, Mouse helps again. Turns out this big old dog is somewhat superpowered, and he barks in some amazingly loud ways that resonate through the whole building. Rouses everybody. They all notice smoke, fire, and everybody starts rushing out of the building. With everybody rushing out, Harry's able to get the whole group of them to kind of blend in. And they all safely get out of the building. They use some magic. Elaine uses some magic to try to keep anyone who's behind them, chasing them, in. If it's a demon or a fae or whatever, only humans would be able to get through what she has put up there. But they make it out of the building without issue. And once out there, Harry sees through part of the crowd, all these people who've gotten out of the building, he sees a guy in a gray cloak. In the dark, Harry can't make out who it is, but he senses he's been seen. This guy, looks and sees Harry looking at him, and he bolts. He runs. Maybe he assumes Harry recognized him. Harry follows. Harry actually manages to get the drop on Grey Cloak, but he doesn't spring on him. He instead allows the guy to get away so he can track him. He shoots at the car and chips a little bit of paint off, and he's able to use that paint now to track this guy. He wants to know, where is he going? Who is he connected to? Is he part of that Black Council that we all have been worried about? What else might he learn? To track this guy, he returns home to use Little Chicago. Now that's that magical model of Chicago that he created previously. And he's going to use a spell to try to move through Little Chicago and track down where this guy has gone. We learn here that Harry hasn't, a conversation with Bob happens right here before he gets into using Little Chicago. And we're going to learn that he hasn't allowed Bob to meet Molly yet. Now, some obvious reasons. Bob's a bit of a pervert, probably be more than happy to meet Molly. But also, Bob is a spirit of intellect, and Molly's been involved with intellectual, mental magic things in bad ways before. Maybe it's better to keep them apart. He also shares some information about what just happened with Mouse. And Bob says, oh, well, he's a temple dog. They have some special abilities. That's what you just saw. They're somewhat supernatural. They're not bulletproof. They can die like anyone else. But yeah, he's got some powers, and you just got to experience them. All right, Harry then uses his seeking spell through Little Chicago, and he's actually able to successfully mentally track down Greycloak at the getaway car. And he's with him as he sees a passenger join him. Now, he doesn't actually see him, he can hear. He's with them in spirit, in a sense, and he can hear a conversation going on between them. And he learns, okay, this guy who just got into the car, he's got it out for Harry Dresden. He's run into him before. So Harry's like, okay, this is someone from my past. Someone maybe I should be recognizing. I have to think about that. He also learns that Greycloak, it's just what he's going to call him, he doesn't know who it is a representative of some circle that's behind what's going on. A behind-the-scenes player. He learns that the Scavis are behind what's happening to the women. And partly what's being allowed to happen here with women being killed now is perhaps to draw out Harry. Again, this passenger wants to see Harry go down. And maybe what's happening with the Scavis killing women will cause Harry to get caught up in it and Harry to be killed. Passenger would love that. Greycloak, he's like, I don't care about this Harry Dresden. Just whatever, so long as you don't let it interfere with our plan. Okay, so there's some bigger plan. Then the two of them split up. They both leave the car, and Harry's like, okay, I can't follow both of them. Who might I learn more important things about? He's tempted to go after the passenger, who's clearly out to get him, but Greycloak is the greater mystery, tied to whatever this circle is. So he follows Greycloak, who goes into Chicago's undertown, secret places down in the bowels of the city. And under there, he sees Greycloak magically communicate with his boss, Cowl. Crap. Cowl is a necromancer. Harry ran into him back in Dead Beat. He thought Cowl died. Cowl is clearly not dead. This is not good. So Cowl is part of this circle. He's behind things. However, unfortunately, after listening to them talk for just a little bit, Cowl detects Harry's spirit. Now, partly because Cowl is only there in spirit. He's not physically there. He's communicating through magic. But he's able to tell you've got someone else with you, and he banishes Harry from this space. Harry is knocked out of his Little Chicago spell. It does a number on Little Chicago. That can be fixed. But that absorbing some of this banishment spell actually probably saved Harry's bacon. Harry just ends up with a pretty bad headache. So Harry gets Murphy over to his place, and they discuss what he's learned. And the two big things are, okay, Cowl isn't dead and is likely working with this circle, which may very well be the Black Council that we wizards think are behind things. Greycloak, we learn he's figured out he's a Malvora, and he's manipulating the Scavis into a situation that will be good for Malvora, bad for Scavis. Now what? Okay, we need to talk about what these are. Malvora and Scavis are both different houses of the White Court of Vampires. They're psychic vampires. And there are three major houses of White Court vampires. There's, of course, House Wraith, like Lara Wraith, like Thomas. They're the ones in charge right now. And their psychic vampirism is that they feed on lust. Malvora, House Malvora, however, psychically feeds on fear. And we saw an example of that in the previous book. Magical Wraith, who's actually a Wraith, but is kind of thrown in with the Malvora style, and he feeds on fear. And then House Scavis, they feed on pain or despair. And now this makes sense. A Scavis vampire is going around causing women to commit suicide. It's the ultimate expression of despair. and he's feeding on it. Okay, let's add some extra layers to the story. Harry checks in with Warden Ramirez, Carlos Ramirez. We met him back in Deadbeat, to update him on what he's learned about a serial killer and to check in on, Ramirez, what do you know about this? There's a private investigator wizard out by you. He wants to know what he's learned about Elaine. He doesn't fess up to having any history with Elaine. And he learns Elaine's got Ramirez buffaloed, thinking she's just a low-rate magic user, not strong enough to really cause any problems, when actually she's nearly as strong as Harry. That's interesting. Harry and Mouse go find Elaine and the Ordo now, not back at that apartment. Now they're hidden together in a strip motel. And he's there. Harry arrives there to confront Helen Beckett, to make sure she's not involved in all of this somehow. Because Harry's got a theory, maybe that passenger was Helen's husband who'd gone to prison. Well, it can't be that. He's dead in prison. But he's still thinking Helen could be caught up in this stuff. It could be about revenge. She's not real pleasant with Harry. She won't fully open up, but the other women do vouch for her, and he does follow his gut in the end to decide, yeah, she's hiding something, but it's not about the murders. She isn't involved in that, at least. But they learn here now that one of the Ordo has gone missing. This is part of why they're all hiding here in this place. Olivia, one who was at the previous meeting, is gone now. And they have seen security footage of her leaving with a man in a gray cloak. Harry gets to see that security footage, and this time, it's actually Thomas. He sees the face. Thomas is the gray cloak man taking women. Harry and Elaine go to find Thomas. They're going to deal with this. Harry uses a tracking spell that leads them to a marina on Lake Michigan, and they find Thomas on a boat. And he initially attacks Harry, thinking he's an imposter. Why would you be here with this strange woman? You'd be here with your dog if it was really you, or someone you know. This is an imposter. And no, it gets real awkward. And then Elaine actually attacks Thomas, thinking she's helping Harry. And no, stop. They figure it out. It really is Harry. And they also figure out Thomas is not killing women, because he's got a bunch of women hidden on the boat and he's protecting them. What Thomas has figured out is magical women are being hunted, and so he's also hunting them to save them, get them to a shelter, a safe place before they become the next victim. So as they figure this out, this is great. It's a relief. And then they're attacked. A boat has come up alongside Thomas's boat, and 13 ghouls jump out of it onto Thomas's boat. Great ghouls, these supernatural creatures, very strong, very nasty, and they've been brought by Magical Wraith. Great, we were talking about him earlier. Things get pretty tense, but they do manage to get away, although Harry, of course, takes a beating. He actually doesn't know that they escape until he comes to later under the gentle care of Elaine. Elaine shares she had stayed with him because he's been unconscious. She wants to make sure he's okay. He'd been out for almost 8 hours, actually. The Ordo members, she'd stashed them elsewhere, and she'd been checking in with them every couple of hours by phone. And now that Harry's awake, need to get back to them, checks in, and they don't answer. That's not good. So they head over to the hotel, and they find Anna Ash dead of suicide. Which, of course, it isn't. She's become one of the victims now. This drive home's the fact that they know they've got Grey Cloak out there and Passenger, who now has been revealed actually as Magical Wraith. That's the one who has some history with Harry. But they still don't know who the Scavis is. It could be anyone. It's the Scavis that's doing the killing, not Madrigal, not Grey Cloak. So, time to finish up our summary in regard to this killer Scavis. They head over to Abby's place, and they find 2 more of the Ordo there, Abby and Priscilla. And they get information from them that points to Helen acting kind of shady and perhaps being behind it all after all. So Harry leaves Elaine with those 2, tracks down Helen where she works, brings Murphy along as backup, And it turns out she works at a really ritzy health club that's partly a front. It's owned by Johnny Marcone. You know, gentleman Johnny Marcone, the head mobster of Chicago. Helen works for Marcone. Now, when we first had met Helen and her husband, they were dabbling in dark magic as a way to get even with Marcone for something that had happened in the past. Now she's working for him. There's reasons. I'm not going to go into all that right now, but Harry is able to learn these reasons, and he's therefore confirms 100% Helen is not behind the killings. She had a secret. Yeah, she was working for Marcone. That's her secret. I'm not going to let everybody know this. But then it all click, 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 click in Harry's head, and he figures out they've been played for fools. The Scavis has been right there in their midst all along. It's Priscilla, one of the women. And it's not a woman. Priscilla is a male Scavis who's been masquerading as a woman, and not a very pretty one. Harry mentions to start with, oh yeah. Okay, he's been preying on them from the inside. So now we rush back. Okay, Murphy and Harry got to get back to Elaine and the others. Humorously find Molly in the back seat of Harry's car again in a veil, wanting to help. There's a little tense moment where Harry does a little object lesson to try to scare Molly into getting it. You can't just do stuff like this. But okay, now here we go. We got to get to save the Ordo. And Harry calls Thomas as well. Get over to there. They're in trouble. And on the drive back, Murphy and Harry break down what's really been going on. This isn't really about murders. What it is about vampire politics. See, the White Court is led by Wraith vampires, and they currently support peace talks between the Red Court and the White Council. Let's stop this war that's been going on between the wizards and the vampires. Scavis is trying to make a point. We don't need peace talks. Instead, let's just cull the herd, humans, of all those with magic. And over time, the strength of humans, like the White Council, will evaporate, and vampires will be on top of it all. So we don't need peace. We'll root them out. So Scavis is going around killing women who are magic users. House Malvora has tried to slip in here at the end, doing the same thing. So Malvora has done some of these killings now. And they're going to try to claim that the whole idea, all these killings across the country, it was all our idea. Harry wouldn't have a clue about any of this, except that idiot, Magical Wraith. He killed Jessica Blanche, that corpse, again, that Molly had checked. It was by mistake. He thought she was a magic user because she actually worked for Johnny Marcone. She's a prostitute, and she'd been seen with Helen Beckett, who is a magic user. And Magical just messed up. I like the fact Magical Wraith is sucked into all of this because, again, in the last book when we met him proven guilty, it seemed to be kind of shoehorned in this little bit about Magical Wraith and that he's not like all the other Wraiths, that he's into fear and that's how he feeds. It makes sense now. We needed to meet him before so we can understand he's a shady character and he's working with a different house, and yeah, it fits now. Now, the White Court, again, White Court politics, it's all about perception in their power structure. If you look weak, you are weak. So if Malvora or Scavis, with their feeling that we don't need peace talks, if they challenge House Wraith, it may come out that the king, Papa Wraith, is actually a puppet being manipulated by his daughter, Lara. And if that's discovered, Wraith's control will crumble. And either the Malvora or the Scavis will move in charge, and that would be worse for the world than having House Wraith in charge. There are good white vampires and bad white vampires, relatively. Lara, of course, Thomas's brother. Thomas's sister, sorry. She could have had Thomas ask Harry for help. But again, White Court, it's all about power, being in control. She couldn't ask for help. It would have made her look weak. So instead, she tells Thomas to stay quiet about all of what's going on. Don't tell Harry anything. And Thomas isn't comfortable with that. So he technically obeys because Lara has Justine. He needs to respect her orders. But then he goes around rescuing potential victims, intentionally sloppy, making sure he's seen, leaving all those clues in his apartment, knowing Harry would eventually figure out what was going on. So he obeyed Lara. But what's great is Lara knows Thomas. She knows he can't keep the secret like this. So by telling him not to tell Harry, she found a way for him to create a way Harry finds out, just like Lara actually wanted. Now, I need to mention something about Harry and Elaine. They, having grown up together and trained in magic together, they have a little thing they can do, some psychic telepathy, a mind speak. If they're close enough together, they can actually talk mind to mind. And they'd used it once earlier in the book, so we're reminded it's a thing they do. Now, as Murphy is driving them back to Elaine where they're hiding, Harry tries to get through to her mentally because no one's picking up the phone. So try to do the mind thing. And he does eventually reach her as she's committing suicide. I mean, she's literally in a bathtub. She slit her wrist and she's bleeding out. And he hears her just talking of despair and how she might as well just end it all. She's been worthless helping these women. And Harry's like, she's being psychically attacked right now. And he breaks through the psychic attack, snaps her out of it. And as they pull up to the hotel, Priscilla, the Scavis, is fleeing out of the hotel room, being attacked by Elaine magically, who's just wrapped in a shower curtain and gets firebombed. And that Scav is not going to be causing many more problems. He does put one little last to do in and almost then takes out Harry. But fortunately, Thomas arrives just in time. And then Mouse comes and finishes the job. So the Scavis is no more. Now we're headed for the big conclusion of the story. Even though there's still like a third of the book left at this point, but much of what takes place in the coming chapters is Harry putting things in place, making arrangements as necessary to head off the disaster that would happen if House Malvora takes charge of the White Court vampires. So this includes getting Warden Carlos Ramirez to help, because Elaine's going to be no help now. She actually is in the hospital because she's so weak. She lost a lot of blood. So she can't help him with what's coming up. He gets Ramirez. He also makes special arrangements with Thomas, with Sergeant Murphy, and mysteriously with Johnny Marcone. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's also significance and more conversation that Harry has with the Shadow of Lachille. More about that soon. The book wrapping up has Ramirez and Harry arriving at the Wraith estate. There's a gathering of the White Court happening here. And they're specifically gathering to discuss how to proceed with the war. How do they deal with the Red Court and the White Council of Wizards? The way the Wraiths want to do it, or the way someone else might think they should? Lara is aware that Harry and Ramirez are there and actually give them permission to come on in and to interact when they think the time is right. So Dresden, Ramirez, they come in upon this meeting. Their plan is to lay charges against Magical Wraith and Greycloak, who we've learned now is Vittorio Malvora, the son of the leader of House Malvora, and going to make charges against them for breaking the Unseelie Accords, specifically murdering people of magic in a time of peace. Because the White Court vampires, they're not at war with these random magic users. They can't just go around murdering people. The Unseelie Accords protect supernatural people like that. Now, the vampires, they're speaking ancient Etruscan. It's the formal language of the vampires, what they would use for official meetings like this. It's like the White Council of Wizards meet, and they talk in Latin. Fortunately, Harry's still got Lash in his head, and she's like, oh yeah, I gotcha. I can translate. I can even help you speak Etruscan. He actually thanks Lash for this, and she's like surprised mentally in his head. Now, good old Vito, when Harry comes and makes these charges, and he challenges him to a duel to settle this, a duel to the death, Vito accepts it. Let's go. Magical Wraith, he's like, I don't want anything to do with that. And Vito's like, you're in, buddy. You're in, or you can deal with my mom. And it'll be worse when she gets done with you. So fine, all right, a duel takes place. Now this is happening where the meeting was, the Deeps, a big cave complex that's on the property of House Wraith. So you've got two vampires, two wizards, got a face off. They're surrounded by all these vampires and some human thralls that are there. A lot of fighting goes on. Of course, there's some cheating going on too, but in the end, Magical Wraith is killed. Vito is just about to die when he calls out, "Master!" And a portal opens from the Never Never, courtesy of Cowl, the Necromancer. And ghouls, more ghouls. Remember the 13 ghouls before? A whole bunch more ghouls come flooding out of this portal into the cave. Not for Harry and Ramirez, actually, though. They're here to kill everybody. And they just start tearing into the White Court vampires. Now, Ramirez and Harry, they're irritated. This was clearly a trap, but they aren't surprised. This is what you expect when dealing with scumbags. So Harry opens his own way into the Never Never. Here's those arrangements he made. And out jumps Thomas, Murphy, Marcone. They've all been waiting to be called in by Harry. And Marcone's got a whole bunch of his hired thugs, all armed to the hilt, and they start shooting and killing ghouls. Marcone also brought explosives, and he starts setting the cave to blow. Together, they manage to get through the chaos to where Lord Wraith and Lara and their entourage are, and they're going to try to get them to safety. Why do they want to save vampires? Well, again, none of this matters if the Wraiths die. They need the Wraith power to still control the White Court. So we're going to get you out of here. And just before they can all get free of all of this stuff, Vittorio Malvora crushes them with a massively powerful spell of despair and terror. They just collapse. They're helpless. And at that point, time kind of stops for Harry. Well, nearly. And what's happened is Lashiel, in his head, has changed Harry's perception of time. She can do this for just limited amount of time. And she offers, this is the time you need to accept the coin. And the full power of Lashiel can rescue you. It doesn't matter that it's buried away. There are ways to get around that. If you accept the coin, you'll have all the power you need to get out of this mess, to save your friends. It will all be there. Now, this is what Harry has been afraid would happen all along. And at this moment, he holds strong. He refuses to accept the coin. He'd rather die. Lash is like, you can't die. I'd die. We don't want to die. It's better than accepting the coin. But you could help me. Harry's having this mental conversation with Lash. I can't help you. I serve Lashiel. You already helped me. You've done things before for me. You can do this, Lash. And Lash makes a decision. Actually goes on her own. Breaks with what Lashiel would really want and does help Harry. Does mention in doing this, it's going to cause some damage. Harry, you're probably going to be brain damaged by this. I can't tell exactly what will happen, but it's not going to be good. And she goes ahead and uses her power in some way, frees Harry from the spell that Vito has him under. Harry holds off from revealing that he's free now, and he gets to hear some of what Vittorio's up to. And it goes together with some of the things he just learned from Lash, because as she makes the decision to help, she also gives him information he needs. He says, Vittorio, the spell he used, this is not just his power. He's drawing power from someone else. It's an outsider. That's with a capital O, an outsider. And that's connected to you, Harry, because you have faced an outsider before. You defeated an outsider when you were 16, that creature, he who walks behind. You thought it was a demon that Justin Dumornay sent at you, but it was something else. It was an outsider. And you, because of the way you were born, this is big stuff for later, because of the way you were born, you have power over outsiders. So this is all tied together in some way. You need to remember this. Okay, now Harry's free and plays possum until he's in the perfect moment to turn real quick and shoot off Vittorio's hand. Turns out losing his hand is a great way to be distracted, and he drops his spell. Everyone is freed from this. Now, Harry keeps Vito in his gun sights, while everyone kind of shakes off the effects and backs away to another gate to get out. Okay. They're all going to escape into the Never Never. Marcone is like, and yeah, we should move because those explosives are counting down. We don't have a lot of time. Let's get out of here. And just as everybody is through the gate, except Harry, who's holding the gun, keeping them back, and Lara, who was with him, before they can get out, Cowell does something with a spell and collapses Harry's gate. Now they're trapped. But they do escape. Harry has a plan. He says, Lara, get us to the exit. Now there's a whole bunch of ghouls blocking the exit. She just goes through them with her sword, slashing like a demon, like a vampire, and gets them all the way to the entrance. Then he turns to her. The rest of the bad guys are all coming right at him up there. He turns to her and he says, kiss me. And she goes off, all white vampire, and gives him a massive kiss. Now, this is with all the charm, all the power of a white court vampire. So he responds physically. His lust rises. He's, and he takes all that emotion, that lust, and he channels it into a spell. He puts up a shield that blocks the people who are trying to get out. It also blocks the explosion that goes off at this moment. Now, it doesn't block it completely. Instead, then the shield wraps around them and they pop like a cork. They go flying through the air. Everyone is killed, seemingly, in the cave, in the explosion. Harry and Lara escape. They also have a heck of a kiss, which then stops when she starts getting blisters, because apparently he's still protected by his love for Susan. Oh, but it's fading a little bit. It's been 4 years since he'd done anything with Susan. Lara's kind of like, and you haven't gotten any from anyone else? That's just sad. Okay, we get a final little breakdown here. Malvora power, Scavis power, it's been devastated. The rulers of those houses were just killed. House Wraith has risen and is more cemented. That's good. But Harry also discerns and says it right to Lara. Okay, you knew what Scavis and Malvora was doing. You set all this up and allowed it to happen so that this whole thing could happen and you'd end up on top even more. She's like, yeah. So she owes Harry and she acknowledges it. He gets a few concessions out of her. Few last things here then. There was some chemistry between the two of them. Now, Harry crushes it with a good insult, as he does, but we might want to pay attention to that. They're enemies, but they kind of, I don't know, almost have a thing. Marcone, remember he was there, he helped. It wasn't out of the goodness of his heart. He was willing to help because one of his prostitutes was murdered, and you don't mess with one of my people. You hit out one of mine, I'm going to take 10 of yours, kind of mobster mentality. But he wanted a little concession from Harry to give his help. And what he got out of him was Harry's support for Marcone being put forward as someone who can sign the Unseelie Accords. Now, mostly the groups that are part of the Unseelie Accords that protects all supernatural entities as they live kind of in harmony are groups like the Wizards, like the Vampire Courts, like the Winter Fae, the Summer Fae. But there are a few entities, there's about 20 across the world that have signed on as individuals. And he wants that. He wants to have the protection and the respect and the rights that will come to him as a signatory of the Unseelie Accords. Harry agrees to help that happen. We also see now, as this book is wrapping up, Lash is gone. Bob confirms it, checks Harry's head. It's like, yeah, Lash is gone. And you've got some brain damage. It's not really stuff that you're going to miss. It's kind of like whatever happened, Lash did and chose to protect you in some ways. But there's some lingering effects. Harry can still play guitar. He's never learned to play guitar, but Lash had helped him play guitar, and he tries again, and he can still play beautifully. So some of her effects are there, but she's gone. She's sacrificed for Harry. With her gone, he finally digs up Lashille's coin, gives it away to Father Foothill. End of the story. Harry finally discovers where Tomas is working. This is just the last part that just made me laugh, because turns out Thomas is working as a high-class gay hairdresser. He's got women from everywhere who want Tomas to work their hair, and he does wonders. And yeah, he's feeding on them. Just little bits, nothing that they're going to miss. It actually feels good to them, and he's getting enough to take the edge off his constant hunger. Win-win. And hilarious when he shows up, when Harry shows up, and, oh, your boyfriend is here. Oh, yeah, it's like, oh boy. Final thoughts as we wrap up this review. Having Lash gone, that's a game changer. Remember, he didn't want to let go of the Shadow of Lasheel because he had access to Hellfire. Will he still have that now, or is that gone? Is he going to miss the power? Will there be lasting effects from the brain damage that'll come about as we move along through the story? Is this the end of the Denarian chapter? You know, coin's gone. Will we see any more Denarian stuff? Or are they going to be back? Marcone as a signatory to the Unseelie Accords? That's a major move for him. It also makes it so Harry will be less likely to hurt Marcone because he'll have protections through the Unseelie Accords. But of course, Harry will also be protected under those accords. Marcone can't just do things to him. So that could get interesting. We had stuff with the Outsiders mentioned in this book, and Harry's got some special abilities against the Outsiders. We need to learn more about that, and I think that'll be coming. And then Cowl. Cowl we thought was dead once. Now we think he's dead twice. Is he really? Did he survive again? And was he part of the Black Council? Because he is a wizard. Is he part of the bigger scene? Is he working with the Outsiders? Is that Black Council working with the Outsiders? This is getting complicated, and we have stuff to learn. But that's where we end with this book. That's a wrap on White Knight. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you keep reading. Review for the next one will be out before you know it. Let me run the outro then. There it is. As I remind you of the ways that you can connect with us again, everything you need to find us on social media, to connect on Discord, even send us an email, it's all going to show up. There it is, over there in the outro notes. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our channel here so you don't miss any of our content, and be sure to check out the other things. Definitely some videos where my son is involved. Much more fun when it's not just my voice. And he's got some good ideas. I kind of like doing content with my son. All right, that's it then. Until next time, we'll talk to you next time.